The rain fell softly on the quiet street, a gentle patter against the pavement. It was late afternoon in a small town, where the air smelled of wet asphalt and distant pine. The bus stop sat alone at the corner, its metal bench slick with rain, under a shelter that barely kept the drizzle at bay. A single street lamp flickered, casting a warm, unsteady glow. The world felt still, save for the occasional hum of a passing car. Leela sat on the bench, her thin jacket soaked through. She was 24, with dark hair tied back in a loose braid, strands clinging to her damp cheeks. Her backpack, worn and patched, rested at her feet, heavy with everything she owned: a few clothes, a cracked phone, a notebook filled with half-written dreams. She'd been homeless for nearly a year, moving from shelter to shelter, town to town, chasing a life that always seemed just out of reach. Tonight, she waited for the last bus, unsure where it would take her. Her breath fogged in the chilly air, and she shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. Across the street, a little girl stood under the awning of a closed diner. She was maybe 7, with a bright red raincoat that was too big for her, the sleeves dangling past her hands. Her curly hair peeked out from the hood, and her eyes, wide and curious, fixed on Leela. In her arms, she clutched a stuffed rabbit, its fur matted from years of love. The girl's sneakers were muddy, and she shifted from foot to foot, as if unsure whether to stay or run. Leela noticed her staring and offered a small smile, the kind you give to be polite. The girl didn't smile back. Instead, she tilted her head, like she was studying Leela, trying to solve a puzzle. Leela looked away, focusing on the rain, the way it dripped from the shelter's edge in slow, rhythmic drops. She didn't want to get involved. She had enough problems of finding a place to sleep, scraping together enough for a meal. Her stomach growled, a quiet reminder of the half-eaten sandwich she'd found earlier. The girl crossed the street, her sneakers splashing in shallow puddles. Leela tensed as the child stopped in front of her, clutching the rabbit tighter. Up close, the girl's face was pale, her cheeks flushed from the cold. Her eyes were a deep brown, almost too big for her small face, and they held a strange mix of fear and determination. "Hi," the girl said, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the rain's murmur. Leela hesitated. "Hey, kid, you okay? Where's your mom or dad?" The girl looked down at her sneakers, then back up at Leela. "I don't have a mommy." "Not anymore." Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Leela's chest tightened. She knew loss, the kind that left holes you couldn't fill. She wanted to ask more, but the girl's expression stopped her, a fragile thing, like a glass ornament about to shatter. "I'm Sophie," the girl said, unprompted. "What's your name?" "Leela," she answered, her voice softer than she meant. "You shouldn't be out here alone, Sophie. It's getting dark." Sophie shrugged, the oversized raincoat rustling. "I'm not scared. I sneak out sometimes. Grandma's house is boring. She's always sleeping." She paused, kicking a pebble into a puddle. "You look cold. Are you a broken bar lost?" Leela blinked, caught off guard. "Lost? No, I'm just a broken bar waiting for the bus." It wasn't entirely true, but it was easier than explaining. She glanced at Sophie's rabbit. "It's one button eye loose." "Nice bunny. What's its name?" "Mr. Flops," Sophie said, holding it up proudly. "He keeps me company." She stepped closer, her sneakers squeaking. "You don't have a home, do you?" The question hit like a stone. Leela's face warmed. Despite the cold, she wanted to lie, to say she had a cozy apartment waiting somewhere, but Sophie's eyes were too sharp, too knowing. "Not right now," Leela admitted, looking away. "But I'm figuring it out." Sophie nodded, like she understood more than a 7-year-old should. She sat on the bench beside Leela, her small frame barely taking up space. The rain kept falling, a steady whisper around them. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was calm, like the world was giving them room to breathe. "You need a home," Sophie said suddenly, her voice steady. "And I need a mommy." She looked at Leela, her eyes wide and earnest. "Maybe we could help each other." Leela froze. The words were so simple, so impossible. She opened her mouth to laugh it off, to tell Sophie she was sweet but wrong, but the girl's face stopped her. There was no joke in those eyes, only a quiet, desperate hope. Leela's throat tightened. She'd spent so long running from connections, from anything that could hurt, but this girl, this stranger, was offering something Leela hadn't felt in years: trust. "Sophie," Leela said gently, "it's not that easy. I'm a broken bar. I'm not someone who can take care of a kid. I don't even have a place to sleep tonight." Sophie hugged Mr. Flops closer. "I don't care. You're nice. You smiled at me. Most people don't." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "My mommy died 2 years ago. Grandma tries, but she's old and sick. I just want someone to talk to, someone who stays." Leela's heart ached. She saw herself in Sophie, the loneliness, the longing for something solid. She lost her own family young, shuffled through foster homes until she aged out. The world had taught her to keep moving, to never look back. But Sophie's words stirred something deep, a flicker of warmth she'd buried long ago. The bus rumbled in the distance, its headlights cutting through the rain. Leela's stomach sank. She had to decide: do you get on the bus, keep running, or stay and face whatever this moment was? She looked at Sophie, who was watching her with that same steady gaze. "Does your grandma know you're out here?" Leela asked, buying time. Sophie shook her head. "She's sleeping. She won't notice. I do this a lot." She sounded proud, but Leela heard the sadness underneath. A 7-year-old shouldn't be wandering alone, shouldn't know how to sneak out unnoticed. Leela took a deep breath, the cold air sharp in her lungs. "Okay, Sophie, let's get you home. It's too wet out here." She stood, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. Sophie's face lit up, and she hopped off the bench, clutching Leela's hand without asking. Her small fingers were cold but firm, like she was afraid Leela might slip away. They walked through the rain, Sophie leading the way. The town was small, its streets lined with old houses and sagging porches. Sophie's home was a gray cottage with peeling paint, a single light glowing in the window. The yard was overgrown, and a rusty bicycle lay on its side near the steps. Leela hesitated at the gate. This wasn't her place, her problem. But Sophie's hand tugged her forward. Inside, the house smelled of lavender and old books. The living room was cluttered but cozy, with a worn couch and a quilt draped over an armchair. An older woman, Sophie's grandmother, Leela assumed, sat in a recliner, snoring softly, a knitting project in her lap. Sophie tiptoed past, motioning for Leela to follow. In the kitchen, Sophie climbed onto a stool and pulled a box of crackers from the cupboard. "Want some?" she asked, offering the box like it was treasure. Leela smiled, her chest loosening. "Sure, thanks." They sat at the table, sharing crackers in the dim light. The rain tapped the windows, a soothing rhythm. Sophie talked about school, her favorite books, how Mr. Flops helped her sleep. Leela listened, really listened, and found herself laughing at Sophie's stories. It felt strange, this warmth, this ease. She hadn't sat with someone like this in years. The twist came quietly, as the rain slowed to a drizzle. Sophie's grandmother woke, her footsteps creaking down the hall. Leela tensed, ready to explain, to apologize for intruding. But the woman, whose name was Clara, didn't scold. Her eyes, tired but kind, took in Leela's wet clothes, her backpack, the way Sophie clung to her hand. "You're the one from the bus stop," Clara said, her voice raspy but warm. "Sophie's been talking about you all week." Leela blinked. "All week?" Clara nodded, easing into a chair. "She saw you there last Tuesday, said you looked sad but kind. She's been sneaking out to check on you." Sophie blushed, hiding her face in Mr. Flops. Clara's gaze softened. "She's right, you know, you do look kind." Leela's throat closed. She didn't know what to say. Clara leaned forward, her hands folded. "I'm not as strong as I used to be. Sophie needs more than I can give. If you're willing a broken bar, there's a spare room upstairs. It's not much, but it's dry. You could stay, help out, be part of this." The offer hung in the air, soft and impossible. Leela's first instinct was to run. Stability scared her more than the streets. But Sophie's hand was still in hers, and Clara's eyes held no judgment, only hope. Leela thought of the bus, the endless road ahead, the cold nights. Then she looked at Sophie, who was smiling, her eyes bright with something Leela hadn't felt in years, belonging. "Yeah, broken bar, I'd like to try," Leela said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you're sure." Clara smiled, and Sophie squealed, throwing her arms around Leela. The rain stopped, leaving only the sound of their laughter, warm and steady in the little kitchen. Over the next weeks, Leela settled into the cottage, She fixed the leaky faucet, mowed the yard, read Sophie bedtime stories. Clara taught her to cook, and they ate together, the table full of simple meals and shared stories. Leila found a job at the diner across the street, her first real job in years. It wasn't perfect as there were hard days, doubts, moments when Leila feared she'd fail, but Sophie's hand in hers, Clara's quiet encouragement, kept her grounded. One evening, as spring bloomed and the air smelled of lilacs, Leila sat with Sophie on the porch, watching fireflies blink in the dusk. Sophie leaned against her, Mr. Flops in her lap. "You're my family now," Sophie said, her voice sleepy but sure. Leila's eyes stung. She pulled Sophie close, her heart full. "You're mine, too," she whispered. The stars came out, one by one, and for the first time, Leila felt home.